hey, part of being a surgeon is doing things that are based on evidence and doing things that you are comfortable doing as a surgeon. So, some time ago, we were talking about Jack Eichel, who was with the Buffalo Sabres and now is with the Vegas Golden Knights. And if you were to tell me that a hockey team in Las Vegas, in the desert, would win the cup, ice hockey in the desert, but Vegas is in the desert. How they build that? Anyway, they built it with all your money because I don't gamble. Anyway, so Jack Eichel, as you know, has been traded by the Buffalo Sabres to the Vegas Golden Knights, and they are going to allow him to proceed with the artificial disc replacement surgery. Now, this is me saying this. I certainly would not want to be the first spine surgeon to do that procedure. I certainly wouldn't want to be the first patient to have that procedure done if I was going to be playing such a high impact sport. Yeah, so I'm gonna eat crow. So the other thing of a surgeon, another job of a surgeon, another responsibility of a surgeon is to, like I said, stay on top of what is the latest evidence. So I started looking at whether artificial disc replacements had been done in professional athletes because I hadn't seen that. And as it turns out, one of my good friends actually has been doing them. His name is Dr. Christopher Good, and he's at the Virginia Spine Institute. Been having great results in professional athletes and some other individuals. So there have been MMA athletes who have had these done and other professional athletes. So he's somebody who's doing it, okay? And there are other surgeons doing it as well, as I found out. So I educated myself as a surgeon because medicine is a lifetime learning experience and we continue to learn. You don't want your surgeon to be stagnant, and I'm not stagnant. Anyway, so Jack Eichel is now a Las Vegas Golden Knight. He is going to have his artificial disc replacement as opposed to a cervical disc fusion, as opposed to an ACDF, anterior cervical discectomy and fusion, which has been the gold standard for a long time, which is what Peyton Manning had when he had his issues. Now, it's interesting because more and more cervical disc replacement is starting to be seen as superior in many ways to an anterior cervical discectomy and fusion, just a fusion. The reason is because of why it's developed. It maintains the motion that you have in your neck, so it reduces the chance of you having to come back 5 years later to have the level above the one that was fused or the level below the one that was fused, the adjacent level. It decreases the chance of you having adjacent segment disease and having that next level have to go undergo surgery. So Jack is getting what he wanted. He is going to have a cervical disc replacement, and I think he is going to do well as a Las Vegas Golden Knight on the ice in the middle of the desert in Vegas. Isn't that crazy? Anyway, I stand corrected.
What aspect of this surgery did you learn that made you, obviously they're doing it, is one thing, but what aspect of it did did he explain where you're like, oh, that's why you can do it? Like what was it what new information did you get other than it's being done? Or like why does it work versus why you thought it wouldn't have worked?
Yeah, so I think the real issue I was having about doing a cervical disc, or the real issue I was wrapping my mind around doing a cervical disc replacement in professional athletes, especially professional athletes in contact sports, is the forces that they endure in their sport. However, after doing my research, and this actually does mean looking at PubMed searches and looking at actually papers, not just going to not going to Google MD.
You go to Joe Rogan and ask him.
or asking Joe Rogan. I love his podcast, but I'm not a doctor. Actually doing some research, which means looking at the literature that's been published about this and talking to other physicians and surgeons who are actually doing these things. And even that's not really research. That's kind of a literature review. Research is actually when you do the experiments, you have a hypothesis, a null hypothesis. If you really do research, you know what that is. and you're trying to, we won't go into that. Anyway, research is not a Google MD search. Google doesn't have a medical school, they don't have a residency. If they did, I would have gotten through this a lot. I would have finished this a lot faster. Anyway, so I guess what changed my mind or made me realize that this is something that could be done first, there was the arguments in favor of in the literature review and talking to other physicians who are doing it. And realizing that, well, look, it's not that different from what you're doing with a fusion surgery. You're taking out the disc, you're putting in an implant that's stable, and you know, the amount of force that would be required to dislodge that thing or to damage that thing would be quite significant, to the point that that amount of force, the person probably wouldn't survive, whether they had an ACDF or a cervical disc replacement. So, it's a good operation, and I think it can be done in professional athletes. As a matter of fact, I actually, after doing my research, had a patient come to see me who's a surfer, and he has one bad disc in his neck. Very active guy, and that's his only issue. He's a young guy, and the gold standard in the past was to do an anterior cervical discectomy and fusion, remove that disc and fuse it. He is somebody who I am going to do an artificial disc replacement. So he is not a professional athlete, but he's out there surfing every morning at 5 a.m. and that's out here in Santa Cruz, and it's not nice. Yeah, I think he goes off to Maverick sometimes as well. Anyway, so it's going to be he's going to be somebody who's going to be very active, and I will be doing a cervical disc replacement for him. In the past, I may have done a fusion on him.